Hey, good morning. So in this last video of our review, I finally made it to the end. I'm going to go over the last page. This is focusing on questions 17 through 25. All of this is going to go over factoring. This is for the retest portion. You've already tested over factoring. You should be doing well on this part, but if for whatever reason you did not do well, you really want to make sure you review this video. Okay, the first part is asking us to factor using the GCF, that greatest common factor. This is where I'm not going to do the X method. I'm just going to see what is the highest factor in both terms. So when we're looking at our constants, you can use your calculator in the normal calculation screen, and I'm going to go to menu. I believe it's algebra, number, and then 5. So menu 2, 5. Remember, you don't have to memorize all the numbers, just read through your menu. You'll find what you're looking for. So I'm going to go to option 5, and then I want to know what is the GCD of that negative 28 and 21. So I'm going to go ahead and type that negative 28, comma 21, enter, and it tells me 7. So I'm going to take that 7. The other thing I want to do is I want to take a look at my variables. They have the same variable. They both have that y. So then I look at the exponents, and I want to take the one that has the smallest power. So between y squared and y to the 4th, that y squared has a smaller power. That's the one that's going to be factored out. So my GCF of these two terms is going to be 7y squared. Now I got to go back and factor using the GCF, and that means I have to go back and divide. I'm going to divide all of this by 7y squared. Okay, so negative 28y squared divided by 7y squared. You can type the coefficients into the calculator if you need. Negative 28 divided by 7 becomes a negative 4, and then the y squares cancel out. 21y to the 4th divided by 7y squared. That 21 over 7 becomes a 3. It's positive, so I include my plus sign. Y to the 4th divided by y squared. The rule is to subtract those exponents, so I get y squared, and I have my answer. You can check doing two things. You can either multiply your 7y squared back, and you get the same thing, or if you like, because your test is going to be multiple choice in this part, you can type your question in the graphing screen using the letter X for whatever variable is given. And I have my question, I get it, graph it, I get my picture, and then I do tab, and then I'm going to graph what I believe is my answer, once again using the X variable. Oops, I did a Y, and we need X. Okay, make sure I typed it in. Everything looks good. Enter. And I can see that they're overlapping, so that's another way to confirm. And since your retest part is multiple choice, this using calculator is not a bad option. Okay, over here, what is the GCF? Same thing. You would find the GCD, which is the same as the GCF of that 4 and 2, type it into the calculator, and we get 2. So I know I have a 2 that comes out. I will tell you there's a minor typo here. There's 5, should not be there. So it should be a squared, 4a squared plus 2a. And then they have the same variable a, so I'm going to pick the one with a smaller power. So my GCD is 2a. And then go back and find the leftovers by dividing. 4a squared divided by 2a. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then you subtract 2 with this 1, and that gives me a power of 1. 2a divided by 2a is 1. So here I see my answer would be A. And once again, you can graph it to confirm. Okay, the next part, the rest of these, this is going to be a lot of the types of questions that you guys were telling me that you liked. You like doing the X method. So here's my X method. Now my middle term is missing, so that means my B value is 0. And then 1 times negative 64 is negative 64. Factors of negative 64 that add to a 0 is going to be a negative 8 and a positive 8. Remember to always go back and divide by that A value of 1. And so then here I get my X, negative 8 divided by 1 is negative 8. X, 8 divided by 1 is a positive 8. And I have my answer. And then just as you did earlier on the GCF, if you'd like, especially since this is the retest part, this is a little last opportunity to guarantee yourself a really good test score. Take the time to come back, double check your work. I type in my question, it gives me my parabola, tab, and then I go ahead and I type out what I believe is my answer. And if I'm correct, I should get the same picture. And here I do, I can see they're overlapping. So we're good. Okay, the next one, same thing. We have our A, B, and C values. My B value is 6. A times C, 1 times 9 is 9. Multiples of 9 that add to 6 would be 3 and 3. Always, always, always go back and divide by the A value. Okay, and if it helps you to go ahead before you start and write out the A, B, and C values, then do so. This would be our A, 6 is B, 9 is C. Okay, so here 3 divided by 1 is a positive 3. On the right, 3 divided by 1 is a positive 3. Since I have the same thing in both of my binomials, on your test, you might see this represented as x plus 3 quantity squared. Okay. Moving on to question 21. And on this one, if you want assistance in finding your factors, I'll show you that. Okay, so once again, my A value is 1, my B is negative 11, and my C is 24. So my C value of 24 goes at the bottom, my B value, negative 11, goes at the top, and I want my factors of 24 that add to negative 11. And then as I mentioned earlier, if you would like assistance in finding those factors, you can use your calculator. I'll go to graphs, and then I'm going to take my bottom number of 24 divided by x, enter. Doesn't matter what the graph looks like. Tab, same thing, that bottom number divided by x plus x. Now I go to Control T, and in that far right column, I'm looking for a negative 11. So here as I arrow down, I'm not getting any negative 11s. Since it's negative, I may want to go ahead and stroll up because that's where I do get some negative values. And then I see my negative 11. So I'm looking at a negative 3 and a negative 8 are my values. Remember to always, always, always go back, divide by the A value. So here, negative 3 divided by 1 is still negative 3. Negative 8 divided by 1 is still negative 8. This is my factors. You could also graph them again to make sure that they are correct. Your answer is correct. Okay. 22. I'm looking for my B value is negative 10. A times C, 1 times 25 is 25. Multiples of 25 that add to negative 11 would be negative 5 and negative 5. And in the next one, I'll go over the calculator method again in case you need it one more time. Always go back and divide by the A value. For these particular questions, notice all of our A values are 1. Negative 5 divided by 1 is a negative 5. On the right side, same thing. Negative 5 divided by 1 is still negative 5. So this is what I have. On your test, you might see that expressed as x minus 5 quantity squared. Okay, they're the same thing. All right, number 23. Okay, same thing. I'm going to do my x method. My a value is 1, b is 10, c is 21. My b value goes at the top. A times c, 1 times 21 at the bottom. Multiples of 21 that add to 10. So one more time, in case you need the assistance in getting those factors going through on the calculator, we go to graphs. It's always going to be the bottom number divided by x. Doesn't matter what the graph looks like. Tab, again, same thing, bottom number divided by x plus x. And then I want the table, so I go Control T, and I'm looking for a 10, and I see it right here. It goes with 3 and 7. Always go back and divide by the a value of 1. 3 divided by 1 is a positive 3. 7 divided by 1 is a positive 7. Okay. 24 says, what are the dimensions of a rectangle with an area of x squared minus 11x plus 28? So dimensions the same. What is the length and the width? Area is length times width. So I want to know what times what gives me this trinomial. In other words, what are the factors? It's a trinomial, we're factoring x method. Okay, if it's helpful, your a value is 1, b is negative 11, c is 28. B value goes at the top, a times c goes at the bottom. Okay, I'm looking for my factors of 28 that add to a negative 11. Okay, one more time, in the calculator, if you need assistance finding your factors, it is always that bottom number divided by x. Tab, the bottom number divided by x plus x. And we go Control T. I'm looking for a negative 11. I'm not seeing it when I go down. I'm just getting positive values. Since it's negative, I want to go ahead and go up, and I see it's negative 4 and negative 7. Okay, when you go back and divide by the a value of 1, negative 4 divided by 1 is still a negative 4. Negative 7 divided by 1 is still a negative 7. Same thing as before, you can always go back and check your answers by graphing the original and graphing your answer. If you get the same picture, it's correct. Okay, and then the last one here, it says, which of the following is a factor? This is, you're still factoring, you're still doing the x method, but one of these answers, as we have in previous problems, one of them's already given. Okay, so here, real quick, my x method, negative 11 goes at the top, 24 goes at the bottom. I want to know what are my factors of 24 that add or subtract to a negative 11. And so you can use calculator. I can just go 1 and 24. That does not add to 11. 2 and 12. Close, but not quite. We have 3 and 8. And that would be my two numbers. Since it's negative 11, I'm looking for a negative 3 and a negative 8. Always go back and divide by the a value of 1. And here I get x minus 3 and x minus 8, because negative 3 divided by 1 is negative 3, negative 8 divided by 1 is negative 8. I look, my x minus 3 is not an answer choice, but my x minus 8 is. And that's it. We're done. Good luck.